Hello, brothers and sisters. Today we'll be reading chapter 14 and chapter 15 of the Gospel of Matthew. Chapter 14 begins with the death of John the Baptist. At that time, Herod, the ruler of Galilee, heard about Jesus. "Is he really John the Baptist who has come back to life?" he told his officials. "That is why he has this power to perform miracles." For Herod had earlier ordered John's arrest, and he had him tied up and put in prison. He had done this because of Herodias, his brother Philip's wife. For some time, John the Baptist had told Herod, "It isn't right for you to be married to Herodias." Herod wanted to kill him, but he was afraid of the Jewish people because they considered John to be a prophet. On Herod's birthday, the daughter of Herodias danced in front of the whole group. Herod was so pleased that he promised her, "I swear that I will give you anything you ask for." At her mother's suggestion, she asked him, "Give me here and now the head of John the Baptist on a plate." The king was sad, but because of the promise he had made in front of all his guests, he gave orders that her wish be granted. So he had John beheaded in prison. The head was brought in on a plate and given to the girl, who took it to her mother. John's disciples came, carried away his body, and buried it. Then they went and told Jesus. Jesus feeds the 5,000. Verse 13. When Jesus heard the news about John, he left there in a boat and went to a lonely place by himself. The people heard about it, and so they left their towns and followed him by land. Jesus got out of the boat, and when he saw the large crowd, his heart was filled with pity for them, and he healed their sick. That evening his disciples came to him and said, "It is already very late, and this is a lonely place. Send the people away and let them go to the villages to buy food for themselves." "They don't have to leave," answered Jesus. "You yourselves give them something to eat." The disciples spoke. "All we have here are 5 loaves and 2 fish," they replied. "Then bring them here to me," Jesus said. He ordered the people to sit down on the grass. Then he took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, looked up to heaven, and gave thanks to God. He broke the loaves and gave them to the disciples, and the disciples gave them to the people. Everyone ate and had enough. Then the disciples took up 12 baskets full of what was left over. The number of men who ate was about 5,000, not counting the women and children. Verse 22. Jesus walks on the water. Then Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead to the other side of the lake, while he sent the people away. After sending the people away, he went up a hill by himself to pray. When evening came, Jesus was there alone, and by this time the boat was far out in the lake, tossed about by the waves because the wind was blowing against it. Between 3 and 6 o'clock in the morning, Jesus came to the disciples walking on the water. When they saw him walking on the water, they were terrified. "It's a ghost," they said, and screamed with fear. Jesus spoke to them at once. "Courage," he said. "It is I. Do not be afraid." Then Peter spoke up. "Lord, if it is really you, ordered me to come out on the water to you." "Come," answered Jesus. So Peter got out of the boat and started walking on the water to Jesus. But when he noticed a strong wind, he was afraid and started to sink down in the water. "Save me, Lord," he cried. At once Jesus reached out and grabbed a hold of him and said, "What little faith you have! Why did you doubt?" Then they both got into the boat and the wind died down. Then the disciples in the boat worshipped Jesus. "Truly, you are the Son of God," they exclaimed. Verse 34. Jesus heals the sick. They crossed the lake and came to land at Gennesaret, where the people recognized Jesus. So they sent for the sick people in all the surrounding country and brought them to Jesus. They begged him to let the sick at least touch the edge of his cloak, and all who touched it were made well. The teaching of the ancestors. This is the beginning of chapter 15. Then some Pharisees and teachers of the law came from Jerusalem to Jesus and asked him, "Why is that your disciples disobey the teachings handed down by our ancestors? They don't wash their hands in the proper way before they eat." Jesus answered, "And why do you disobey God's command and follow your own teaching? For God said, 'Respect your father and your mother,' and if you curse your father or your mother, you will be put to death. But you teach that if people have something they could use to help their father or mother, but say, 'This belongs to God,' they do not need to honor their father. In this way you disregard God's command in order to follow your own teaching. You hypocrites, how right Isaiah was when he prophesied about you. Isaiah says, 'These people,' says God, 'honor me with their words, but their heart is really far away from me. It is no use for them to worship me, because they teach human rules as though they were my laws.'" Verse 10, the things that make a person unclean. Then Jesus called the crowd to him and said to them, "Listen and understand. It is not what goes into your mouth that makes you ritually unclean. Rather, what comes out of it makes you unclean." Then the disciples came to him and said, "Do you know that the Pharisees had their feelings hurt by what you said? Every plant which my Father in heaven did not plant will be pulled up," answered Jesus. "Don't worry about them. They are blind leaders of the blind. And when one blind man leads another, both fall into a ditch." Peter spoke up. "Explain this saying to us." Jesus said to them, "You are still no more intelligent than the others. Don't you understand? Anything that goes into your mouth goes into your stomach and then out of your body. But the things that come out of your mouth come from the heart. And these are the things that make you ritually unclean. For from your heart come the evil ideas that will lead you to kill, commit adultery, and do other immoral things, to rob, lie, and slander others. These are the things that make you unclean. But to eat without washing your hands, as they say you should, this doesn't make you unclean." A woman's faith. Verse 21. Jesus left that place and went off to the territory near the cities of Tyre and Sidon. A Canaanite woman who lived in that region came to him. "Son of David," she cried out, "have mercy on me, sir. My daughter has a demon and is in a terrible condition." But Jesus did not say a word to her. His disciples came to him and begged him, "Send her away. She is following us and making all this noise." Then Jesus replied, "I have been sent only to the lost sheep of the people of Israel." At this, a woman came and fell at his feet. "Help me, sir," she said. Jesus answered, "It isn't right to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs." "That's true, sir," she answered, "but even the dogs eat the leftovers that fall from their master's table." So Jesus answered her, "You are a woman of great faith. What you want will be done for you." And at that very moment, her daughter was healed. Jesus heals many people. Verse 29. Jesus left there and went along by Lake Galilee. He climbed a hill and sat down. Large crowds came to him, bringing with him the lame, the blind, the crippled, the dumb, and many sick people, whom they placed at Jesus' feet, and he healed them. The people were amazed as they saw the dumb speaking, the cripple made whole, the lame walking, and the blind seeing, and they praised the God of Israel. Verse 32, Jesus feeds 4,000. Jesus called his disciples to him and said, "I feel sorry for these people because they have been with me for 3 days and now have nothing to eat. I don't want to send them away without feeding them, for they might faint on their way home." The disciples asked him, "Where will we find enough food in this desert to feed this crowd?" "How much bread do you have?" Jesus asked. 7 loaves, they answered, and a few small fish. So Jesus ordered the crowd to sit down on the ground. Then he took the 7 loaves and the fish, gave thanks to God, broke them, and gave them to the disciples, and the disciples gave them to the people. They all ate and had enough. Then the disciples took up 7 baskets full of pieces left over. The number of men who ate was 4,000, not counting the women and children. Then Jesus sent the people away and got into a boat and went to the territory of Magadan. Here ends chapter 15. Matthew describes what may have been the longest 2 days of Jesus' ministry. Grief over John the Baptist's death, feeding the 5,000, walking on water, and arguing with the Pharisees, all in 48 hours. But here's the model for us. Twice in that period, he withdrew to